Can I just ask you a question, by the way?
Yeah.
How bitter are you that the Sixers finally got a very impressive offensive performance from Ben Simmons, where he shot 92% from the free throw line, and you lost?
Not at all.
All right.
Honestly, not at all. When Embiid misses a game, I just immediately chalk it up as a loss, and it's more just a time to figure out what else they can get working. I really liked seeing, they brought Mike Scott in as the starting center, which I've been clamoring for, not because Mike Scott stands any chance as a center, but it forced some interesting cross matches where Ben was guarding Donovan Mitchell, but Gobert was guarding him, and Ben had 19 first quarter points. They just had no answer for him. And then, I think there have been a couple themes. We don't need to go into it today, but a couple themes have become very obvious for the Sixers heading into the trade deadline. These past few games have really emphasized them. So I think there are a lot of silver linings to their 3 games losing streak, because it's informative. It's giving Daryl Morey a very clear picture of what he needs to do heading into the trade deadline.
I mean, I can't help but ask this question then, because you just said if Joel Embiid is not playing, you basically automatically chalk that up to a loss. Mm-hmm. Ben Simmons is supposed to be that secondary superstar, right?
Well,
where you actually rely on him to be able to win you games when Joel Embiid is out.
And
if you automatically go in to a game expecting the team to lose, despite the presence of Ben Simmons, what does that say about Ben?
If he puts up 42, 12, and 9 and they still lose by 11, what does that say about the rest of his team? And Tobias Harris has 36 and 10.
He has 36. No. That I agree with, but I'm just basically saying sometimes if you are the secondary guy, you just need to get that W. And if you come in, like I'm not a Sixers guy.
Yeah.
I don't watch as much Sixers as you do, so I'm actually surprised at your statement. I've never heard you say this before. That's why I picked up on it. For you to basically say I'm just counting them out for when Embiid isn't playing, that to me just. That the reason that jumped to mind was because it feels as though you're basically saying the drop down from Embiid to Ben Simmons as the number one guy on any particular night is so big that you can't rely on Ben enough to take you to bring you home and win.
I mean, they're 1-5 without Embiid this year. Their one win was against Indiana, where they were down $1 million in the fourth quarter and started zoning up and came back. Like junked up the game and came back. So I think it's more just, it's similar to Utah, where if everyone is healthy, the team makes sense. But as soon as, we're seeing it, even Embiid played the last couple games before last night, but Shake Milton was out. And the bench just cannot do a goddamn thing right now because they don't have a shot creator in Shake Milton. Like Tyrese Maxey is not it. I love the kid, but he is not a primary playmaker at this point in his career. So the bench is just a godless abomination without Shake Milton. And then in the starting lineup, so much of what they do runs through Embiid on both ends of the court. I wrote about this before the Indiana game. I said every time he misses a game, his MVP case only becomes stronger. It's like what we were talking about with Jokic earlier. Pull Embiid out of the Sixers, and they get obliterated. Because offensively, he leads the team in usage rate. He's also drawing a league-high number of free throws. So a lot of what they do depends on feed the ball to Embiid, have him kick it out. If he gets double-teamed, you can create open shots from there. Or draw fouls, get the opposing bigs in foul trouble, and then you get to have easier matchups for the rest of your teammates because you're going against backup bigs. Defensively, he's obviously the fulcrum of the team as well. Ben's really good on the perimeter, but having, if Ben gets blown by or someone else gets blown by, Danny Green in particular, who just on-ball defense is not his forte anymore, you still have Joel Embiid waiting for there in the paint, ready to deter easy layups or block shots or whatever. So, I don't think this is a Ben thing. I think it's just they correctly built their team around Joel Embiid, and on games he misses, Dwight Howard ain't it, or Mike Scott ain't it. going into the trade deadline, they need a more reliable stretch big, because I don't think you can count on Mike Scott in that role as much as I love him. And they need another ball handler because they are completely inept whenever Ben or Shake is out on the floor.
Fair enough. To me, it just sounded a little bit like if we can't rely on Ben Simmons, that's a problem. But if you take it into the full context of the whole roster and not just Ben being that guy, fair enough. I would personally find it problematic if my secondary superstar could not on occasion bring it home for me, but fair.
Yeah, I don't think it's a Ben thing. I think it's just like this roster is a series of dominoes, and if you remove one, the rest of them fall down pretty quickly. Like, they've covered up a lot of weaknesses because Ben and Tobias and Joe have played so well this year. But this team has no business being at the top of the East. No one had them at the top of the East coming into the year.
Right.
It was like, oh, okay, Daryl Morey sort of fixed the roster. That's cool. Like, they've effed up a lot over the last few seasons. They're still very much in undo the damage mode. And they did that to some extent, but you can only patch holes for so long here. Like, you're still.
And let's just clarify, when you say mess up, because some people are going to read that as cleaning up from the process period, but that's not what you're referring to. You're referring to no, I know what you're referring to, but I'm just saying there are still people out there who will contact me, for example, go, yeah, they've really messed up back with the process, and I'm just like, well, that's not really accurate.
The Colangelo and Brand eras,
right? Yes, exactly. And Brand is still there, but he just has less control.
Right.
Yes.
He's the quote-unquote general manager, but Daryl is the team president and actually does everything, I think. But yeah, I mean, it's a fair point. Like, it's fair to question that. I think Tim Bontemps of ESPN wrote an article calling Ben Simmons an enigma, because it's like, when he has performances like this, it is frustrating. You're like, where the hell has this been your entire career? Like, you've been going downhill, you're aggressive. Why aren't you like this all the time? I mean, that is the ultimate question with Ben Simmons. But I think for him, it's always just been like, he's balancing being a point guard versus being a scorer. And he knows, like, this team runs through Joel Embiid. So when Joel Embiid's healthy, I'm going to give it to him more often than I'm going to, in transition, I'm going to push the tempo. And it's encouraging that he's looking to attack the basket more in recent weeks. And as you said, the free throws last night were fantastic. That's a great sign for a guy, who's been around 60% for his career. But no, I cannot pin last night's loss on Simmons or Tobias. It's really the rest of the roster just kind of falling apart in the wake of Embiid and Shake Milton, who I think I cannot emphasize enough how much they have missed Shake Milton in recent games.
Fair enough. The shot thing is definitely legit. I mean, he on a per 36 minute over the course of his career, he's only trended downwards. So by this point in about 7 years, he's going to be taking like 5 shots a game.
Ben?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, he did say last night at the post-game presser, he said it's been a focus of him to be in this mindset more often. So maybe we will see the more aggressive version of Ben Simmons moving forward. I hope so. I think that would
be nice.
That would ease a lot of concerns about who creates offense even in the half court, because they've been. I'll say this: Ben's really gotten more comfortable using these. Really, I think he's been using it on both hands. But these little hook shots, like he posts up and he does either a hook shot or like a little bank shot, and it's been pretty effective. I'm not saying he's hitting it every time, but I mean, it's a good way for him to manufacture offense in the half court, not in transition, which has been the concern about him throughout his career, because he's famously averse to taking jump shots. Yeah.
Well, I mean, in about 4 years, maybe he'll start launching more threes.
I mean,
I'm completely out on him as a shooter at this point.
Oh yeah,
I just have no optimism about him turning into a 3-point shooter.
He's like, he practices them. His shot form.
I
looks
know.
Good,
I'm seeing that in pre-games.
Yeah.
Like when I watch them play, he's out there and he's taking threes, and some of them look clean too. And then the game starts, he has like a wide open corner three, and he's just like, nope. It's infuriating.
Well, I mean, he's just really not in those spots very often. Like the ball's in his hand so much that it's rare for him to be just posted, like in the corner off ball. Like that's just not what they do offensively very often. They're going to have Danny and Tobias and Seth out on the corners, and they're going to run snug pick and rolls or post ups with him more often than not.
Look, if he's hitting 56% of his shots and he is getting to the line more, and apparently like last night he's converting at a higher rate, I'm good with that. That's fine.
Yeah, and Doc has just, I cannot tell you how many times in these pressers he's been like, I don't care about Ben scoring. The only thing we care about is him getting downhill and being aggressive. And you guys don't notice everything else he's doing. Like, stop asking about his scoring is basically the subtext to that, which I wrote about recently at Forbes as well.
Yeah. No, I mean, his defense is, I that is game changing.
Yeah.
I totally agree with you on that. It's like, I think we really should split up the Defensive Player of the Year award to being both interior and perimeter, honestly.
Yeah.
I think that would be so much fair. And then Ben would have that perimeter Defensive Player of the Year on lock the next 5 or 6 years.
Yeah, he is. I think the frustration with him is, you haven't seen a ton of strides offensively, especially when you compare him to a guy like Jaylen Brown. But defensively, there is zero question that he is significantly better from where he was as a rookie to where he is now. He is in full control of that aspect of his game. And that's, going back to like the James Harden trade talks, like everyone was so ready to, trade him plus a million picks plus Thibault or Maxey or whatever. And it's like, I get it offensively, but he's a huge part of what they do defensively. That you cannot downplay how much they would be losing if they trade Ben Simmons. Like, I'm not saying he and Joel Embiid are going to play the rest of their careers together. It would not surprise me if they ultimately trade one. But I think the more that both Doc and Morey have seen, the more they have grown fond of all of the little things Ben Simmons does, especially Doc. Doc just absolutely loves the guy.
Yeah. No, and it makes sense because Doug also loves defense. He loves playmaking. He loves unselfishness. And, Lord knows Ben has oodles of both those things. And 6'11" point guard as well. I mean, who wouldn't love that? Especially when he can actually guard players who are 5, 6, 7 inches shorter than him.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. Well, that's a good place. Now that we've gone a 15-minute Ben Simmons tangent. That is a good place for us to wrap up. So thank you all, as always, for listening. Please follow us on Twitter at the NBA Pod. You can find our Twitter handles in our bio, so give us a follow as well. You can also find us on iTunes and wherever else podcasts are found. And we're being hosted on Spreaker, so check them out on Twitter at Spreaker. And thanks for listening to our live show on Locker Room. If you liked our show, please be sure to start your own room and engage with other fans on the app. Download the Locker Room app in the Apple App Store to be a part of our podcast. Until next time, I'm Bryan Toporek, and I was joined, as always, by Morten Jensen. Have a good one, Mort.
You too, man. Don't die.